Hey everyone. I just want to take some time today to share some news about Exactis Innovation. Now, some of you may already know that Exactis has been a 10-year experiment funded by the business-led National Center of Excellence program. It was originally, created by Dr. Gerald Battist, who was awarded the grant initially for Exactis back in 2014. For those of you who've been here for that long haul, you'll know that our organization evolved over time. And while originally we were created to offer patients access to molecular testing, the reason for that was so that we were able to have patients considered for multinational clinical trials assessing targeted therapies. At that point in time, molecular testing wasn't part of standard of care. That meant that most patients didn't have enough information on their tumor and on their cases to be even considered for those clinical trials. Dr. Battist believed that this was unacceptable for a country such as Canada to not be able to offer these options to our patients at that point in time, and was able to successfully propose a solution to the business-led National Center of Excellence program. Well, shortly after Exactis got off the ground and began to build our network, I think the provincial government saw the need for molecular testing, or at least limited molecular testing, and began to offer some small panels as part of standard of care, at least for targets where there was some sort of a drug available or treatment available to them. Well, that was great for patients. I think a huge change to the treatment landscape at that point in time. But for Exactis, we believe that there was more to be done, that there was an unmet need in being able to take that information, have it on hand, and be able to actually match those patients to clinical trials. And so Exactis evolved. It became a CRO with this network where it was able to reach out and to identify these patients and to try to match them to clinical trials. It was, I think, a great experiment at that time, and many of you who are still trying to do this in Canada will know how challenging it is to find enough patients in a timely manner to meet clinical trial recruitment targets in a meaningful period of time. Well, after a few years of ramping up our CRO capabilities, the first thing that happened was we were hit by COVID-19, which resulted in most hospitals, actually all hospitals at some point, ceasing recruitment activities. This is obviously tough for a small organization. If you're a large multinational CRO, you can absorb this kind of a impact and knowing that there is going to be a need someday for continuing those activities. But for a small organization, this was a challenge. It also presented really an opportunity for Exactis to have another look at what it was offering in terms of value for Canadian researchers and the patients that had committed their data to us. So it was with that the board asked the leadership team to take another look at what we were doing. And that was the point at which I was able to come in and to join Exactis to help conduct our strategic review at that time. We very quickly realized that the most valuable thing that we could do was to open up the data bank that we had diligently collected over the previous 7 years. At that point, it had over 8,000 patients. Really, a critical sort of threshold had been crossed, we believe, that would allow research to be conducted, good quality research. And with the fact that for all of these 8,000 patients, we had a very deep understanding and a very deep data set, treatment histories, a longitudinal continuous update of what was happening to those patients in real time, demographic data, their treatment, their outcomes, not only their molecular tests, but other lab tests as well as imaging, all available for research purposes. Well, all of these were available, so we decided to turn the ship around and shift off the focus on the CRO, shift off that concept of matching patients to clinical trials, and focus on making the most out of the data that we had available to us. We knew there was a need based on all the people we talked to in the Canadian landscape in having real data to make real decisions on, especially when it came to reimbursing drugs, when it came to understanding what was happening in the real world after they were launched. This was one of those things that we felt was a necessity for a world-class healthcare system, as opposed to a nice-to-have sort of research project that would be nice to at least have running in our environment. Well, since then, since that decision, we did a number of things. One of the first things that we did was we became a partner of CADIT's post-marketing drug evaluation program, today Canada's drug agency. We became a member of the CoLab team under that organization. And what we were able to do there was to contribute on an ad hoc basis to questions coming from provinces, territories, or other jurisdictions who were looking to answer questions around appropriate use and market access decisions for oncology treatments. For us, this proved to be a turning point to the use of our patients' data for informing real world decisions in a real time manner. This became our mantra and what we focused on for the next 3 years. Honestly, between re-engaging with our network and letting partners and clients know about our focus and our data capabilities, and then executing the studies that people brought to us, it was a pretty hectic 3 years since I joined the organization. And today we sit within a network that has 16 centers and, with others that have been looking to join, and more than 11,000 patients that were consented and have contributed their data for research purposes. We've had the opportunity to work with both academics and R&D based biopharmaceutical partners in Canada. Well, I think we demonstrated the need for the type of, ready to use curated databanks, that can drive decision making, and in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to drive, AI model development. Essentially, what will be the next wave of healthcare innovation delivery in not only in Canada but the rest of the world. Though we were able to do all that today, unfortunately, I do have to announce that Exactis has ended our data collection efforts, and we will be shutting our doors as a research organization soon. Now, while our organization is not the only one finding itself in difficult financial times, we are rather endemic, I'd say, of the challenges in doing RWE research in Canada. So it's not really just about the money. For those of you who have watched our What's with RWE podcast, which, by the way, is not going anywhere. A new season will be coming up next year. But you will have seen us, either myself or many of our guests, talk about the challenge in collecting decision-grade data in Canada. And that's different than just being able to have access to to data. It has to be data that is high enough quality, that is comprehensive and complete, and with the appropriate and ethical consent of patients to be able to use that for answering research questions and for making regulatory and other decisions in Canada. Whether it's because of our historic decisions around, how do we manage data? What does privacy look like? A pitiful investment in infrastructure in managing those data sets, or whether it's just the challenge of trying to get different people around the table to agree on working together. The need for scale in Canada, for me, is absolutely a necessity. We don't compare with the US next door. We don't compare with even a single country in Europe, whether it's the UK or France, who are already putting these programs into place. And if we want to attract researchers, world-class researchers, and the people that will be creating the world-class innovations in healthcare, then we need to be working together as one, as opposed to dividing the resources and the efforts required to create, I think, large-scale data sets. But that's something for the future to be tackled. We are currently working ourselves to ensure that our data bank will be available for future research. More information on that will be coming out as it's fully fleshed out, and we will make sure to share that in the appropriate channels with the research community. Now, On behalf of the team at Exactis, I do want to first off say thank you to the patients who put their trust in us that we would use their data appropriately and with their best intentions in mind. We know that the number one reason that many patients participated in the PMT registry, giving us access to their data set, was so that their journey could help other patients. And I think that we were able to accomplish that with some of the work we were able to do over the past 3 years. We also want to thank the coordinators and the PIs at each of those sites who contributed on the ground in identifying patients and consenting them and extracting their data. Their advice was invaluable in identifying how do you work with each of these different institutions in our network. There's so much heterogeneity in how everybody operates within our Canadian environment. So having that experience and the boots on the ground locally gave us the flexibility to not only work with different institutions, but to be able to shift gears quickly between projects, and being really responsive to the needs of the decision makers that we were serving. The Exactis network has always been a coalition of the willing. It was never, participation was never imposed on anyone. It was really about creating a different type of research platform in Canada. And for all of those who believed in that vision and who helped to create it, we thank you. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to the Exactis board for giving me the opportunity to work with an extraordinary group of individuals. Over the past 10 years, Exactis was able to attract a dedicated group of employees. You don't join a nonprofit organization to get rich. You do it because of the mission. You do it because you believe that you can leave the world a bit better than you found it. And that was the ethos that I saw in everyone who worked at Exactis. It is my hope that Exactis's legacy will be one of inspiration. Exactis demonstrated that the walls can be broken between provinces to create pan-Canadian data. Exactis demonstrated that patients want their data used to improve cancer care, not only for them, but for future generations. And it was a privilege to have the opportunity to work in that type of an environment. So, to the dreamers ready to create Exactis 2.0, I wish you luck. Thank you.